get there from here.
Boy, I wish I had one of those old-fashioned train whistles. Remember those wooden things that you blow in that sound?
Yeah,
Have you got one?
I got one.
Maybe we'll get a chance to get the sound. Hello, everybody. We're in Peru on a very frigid day in December. What the heck day is this? The 9th? 8th? I lost track ever since Pearl Harbor Day. 8th of December, 2000, way below zero in the country, but warm hearts everywhere getting ready for the Christmas season this year. And finally, I get to bring Calvin and the camera into the home of my friend Dave Brown in Peru. David, we've been talking about this for years.
Yep. Finally got you here.
You wanted to wait till my beard got gray before you got me here. Anyway, this is a guy that's been a friend of mine ever since he was a young teenager. He and his family lived in Baker's Trailer Park off Adirondack Lane when I moved in there in 1966. How old were you in 1966?
66. I was about 18.
Isn't that amazing? A lot of water over the dam since then. David has been a mailman in the area, a mail carrier for how many years?
30.
Come on.
30.
Are you approaching retirement?
About a year.
Oh, not that he's counting or anything,
Nobody's counting.
but he's done it for a long time, and he's been affectionately known in our family and many other families as Old Graybeard for a long, long time. You've also been a railroading enthusiast, model railroading enthusiast since childhood, or what?
No, just maybe 10 years.
Now, when you were young, you and your brother were who built the tin ships? Didn't your brother build a tin boat out of tin when you were young?
No, they used to do ships in the bottles.
Ships in the bottles?
Yeah, he used to do a lot of carving.
Carving? And when did you ever make models as a kid?
As kids we always had model cars. Always.
Always.
Boxes of them.
Oh, boxes and boxes. Do you still have some?
No.
No, they're all
They're all
gone.
gone.
What a shame. It'd be nice to have them around. But anyway, you've lived in Peru here for how long, David?
24 years.
Come on.
Yeah. We just celebrated our 24th anniversary.
Oh, and his wife, Mary Ann, is the best seamstress in the whole world. I
got to agree with you there.
I peeked in there on the way through with Calvin, and I saw rows and rows and rows of cloth. And
yeah, she's busy.
she has been. She told me how many wedding gowns she does in 1 year, and it's beyond what I can even believe.
Between the prom dresses and the wedding gowns, she'll hit 50, 60 of them sometimes.
And every year she makes this fabulous hard candy.
There's a jar on the table waiting for you downstairs.
Oh, man. My mother used to make this hard candy, and I thought she invented it. Guess what? She didn't invent it. It's been around for years, and Mary Ann has been handing out dozens of jars of this candy forever and ever and ever.
In the hundreds.
So anyway, we've talked about model railroading and asked if we could intrude on your private territory and your inner sanctum upstairs in this beautiful old home. How old is this house, do you know?
It's around 100 years.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I just love this house. I love lots of rooms, big rooms.
Yep.
And you're a woodworker.
Yep.
So you got a shop out in your garage upstairs, which
in
I've
mine.
seen. I'm sure it's a lot different now than it was when I last went in there about 5 years ago.
Yep.
And you just decided to use this room for railroading.
That and my stained glass.
And stained glass, too, as you can see. I had no idea you were into that. What prompted that interest?
Oh, I took a non-credit course years ago. And,
Come on.
no, really.
And that's what got it
Got
going?
it started, yeah. My wife likes stained glass, so she signed me up.
Isn't that amazing? Do you make new stuff, or is this repairing old stuff?
This one's a repair. This one's a repair. You have to bend it. They're curved. You have to heat them up in the kiln and bend them, make them mold.
Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel! I had no idea. That may be a whole other program, Calvin. Oh, you got the kill back there.
You have to make them mold.
Come on.
That's the way you do it.
So you've been doing this for how long?
Oh, probably 8 or 10 years.
You gotta be kidding. This man has so many facets to his personality and his talents that we may not be able to fathom them. And he was embarrassed about inviting us up here because his collection wasn't complete. Give me a break, David. This is any youngster from the age of 4 to 104 would go crazy to come into this room right here and look at trains, because these are the things we had and we dreamed about all through our childhood. So you actually didn't get the interest in the model railroading until when?
We had trains as kids, and
Yeah,
like
as we
everybody
all
else,
did.
and to really start building the layout, it's probably 5-10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I built 2 or 3 of them and tore them apart and started over again. And
I think you've always told me that you're trying to build a base of people who are interested in railroading here. You do have a group.
yeah, we have 4 or 5 of us that get together informally, at somebody's house most every week. We drop off in the holidays in the summer, but over the winter we just go to each other's house and run trains.
Isn't it great to recall your childhood and rejuvenate that childhood that some of us, when we grow up, we try to put our childhood in the past, and some of us try to retrieve it. And I like the latter myself. I hope I never lose my childlike interest and curiosity in things, and railroading is one of those things. So
We've got all diesels here today, but some nights we'll run just steam engines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll just, if we feel like it, we'll run steam one night, or we'll mix them, whatever we feel like doing. There's no set
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
pattern to it.
We saw you, what was it, about a month ago now, down at the Crate Center?
Yeah, in October, I believe.
We're recording this in December, so it would have been in October. And what was that all about?
Well, it was the Peru Fire Police put on a train show. One of the fire police is in the trains with us, and he organized it a couple of years ago. And we have a modular club, which is each person has a section, and we put them all together to make one big layout. And we go to shows with it over the course of the year, and just more as a display than anything. And it just helps promote the hobby and so on.
It certainly does. And I saw people who were so inspired by that they were I was kidding Gary Peacock, my friend Gary Peacock.
Gary's been out here 4 or 5 times.
He has already?
Oh, yeah.
I saw him by the door when I was leaving the train show, and he had these bags of stuff and this gleam in his eye.
Oh, yes.
So somebody saw him coming. Man, he had track and he had trains, and he's come out here just to look at your stuff. And I think you got Gary Peacock hooked.
Oh, yeah, he is hooked. No, he came out here He came and found me on Sunday, and he said, I want to talk to somebody that's not trying to sell me something.
That's good. That's
And
good.
we tried to set him straight.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can spend a lot of money or a little money to get
Oh, yeah.
started,
Oh, yes.
but it becomes a real passion after a while, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, you get, you get a
You
little
want
carried
that
away
next
with it.
engine, they want that next car, you want that next piece of track, you want that, because in spite of the fact that model railroading has been around long before you and I were born,
yes.
there are new things happening electronically now. You're
yes.
talking to me about computerized operations. I misspoke myself when I wrote a little column about it. What is that into now?
Well, the computer is just it randomly picks cars and sends them to different industries. It doesn't actually physically send them. It just makes a list for you to operate
I
from.
see.
It's like a dispatcher. It tells you this car has to go here and this car has to go there, and you have to pick this car up and bring it here, and so on. The actual control this is a DCC, which is digital command control, and you can run one engine right behind another on the same track, and you have two different people controlling them. It's not like the old transformers and blocks where you can only have one train in a block at a time. This is just like a real one. You can run one engine right up behind the other and still have separate control.
That's truly amazing. A far cry from the old Lionel set that I had in the 1930s and 1940s. But people still collect those, and they still run
Yes.
them, don't they?
Yeah, I've got some in the other room there.
Do you? Well, hopefully, before we finish today, we'll be looking at everything. Do most model enthusiasts like to build some of their own stuff? Or
Yeah,
do-
usually your buildings come as kits. You have to paint them and weather them or whatever you want to do with them after you assemble them. Some of mine are just half assembled. We just put them up there to figure out where they are, where they're going to fit until we get time to paint them and finish them.
Oh, you could spend 20 hours a day at this hobby.
Oh, easily.
And never go to bed and still not be finished, because that's the beauty of it. There's
Yep.
always more to do.
Oh, yes, there's always something to be done.
Who's got the best layout in Clinton County right now?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Because there are model enthusiasts who don't join groups,
Right.
people you don't know about who just
There's a lot of
privately escape into the basement or the
Yep.
garage
Yep.
and work on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do this that just don't say a word about it. They're very private about it.
Now, we got a few guests with us today, and we're going to move the microphones around and talk to Bill Rook and Jim Morse over there. Let us just sneak around and around the corner here and see what have you got running here today, David? I'll follow you as we walk right over here.
We've got a couple. We have 4 locals here. Obviously, they're running 2 of them.
That's great. Bill, how are you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Gordy. How are you?
Oh, great to see you. Bill Rook, his face should be familiar to people in the North Country, and so should his reputation. He was and is in the music business. When did you start in the music business around here?
I came here in 1961. Started teaching.
Same time I did?
Started teaching at Plattsburgh City Schools. Taught there for 8 years. Then went to Dannemora for about the next 19. Finished up in Saranac. Finished up in Saranac about 4 years ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
But you haven't given once you do music, it's like model railroading. You never retire from it. Not really.
No. It never goes away. It's always there.
We saw you a couple weeks ago as we're recording this in December at the Champlain Valley Oratorio Christmas concert at Hawkins Hall. That was fun, wasn't it?
That was a nice concert. I was more spectator on that one than participant. But
No, you were a participant. Don't kid me. How often do you play music?
quite frequently. I play in the community orchestra when that's going, and other orchestras around as they need a French horn player. So and then I get to concerts and do some subbing, substitute teaching.
Oh, you do? But you don't do private lessons, do you?
No, I haven't done private lessons for a good many years. So, but I do. I go out to Saranac and substitute, and I substitute periodically in the city schools.
Tell me how your interest in model railroading started, Bill.
Well, you're going to look at this little engine right here.
Okay, let's look at it.
And then if you look at the printing on it, it says the Saratoga and Schuylerville Railroad. And I grew up in the little village of Schuylerville, which is near Saratoga Springs. And that little engine, or one like it, the real size like it, would come in past my house every day. And every day I'd go to the living room window and I would watch. It was about 100 yards away. And I can't ever remember not being interested in trains.
So your actual collection of trains, when did that start?
About that same time.
It never stopped.
And it has never stopped.
So how much do you have at home?
Oh, gee, it's hard to say. I have a lot. My interest is mostly the Delaware and Hudson, so I have a lot of Delaware and Hudson engines. I have my Saratoga and Schuylerville engine and a couple of Boston and Maine things. Probably 70 or 80 pieces of rolling stock. My project at the moment is to recreate the Amtrak Adirondack train as it comes through Plattsburgh, and I've been working on that.
Isn't that amazing? Most enthusiasts are also interested in the history of railroading and railroads around here. I guess that goes together with it, doesn't it?
Most enthusiasts are interested in the history of some railroad, quite often the one where they grew up, and quite often in the era in which they grew up. So for me, it's the 1960s, late 1950s, 1960s. When they go to recreate a layout, sometimes they'll try to recreate a portion of that railroad. It's difficult when you consider that a mile of track is 1/87th of 5,000 feet. You cannot.
He's
you
trying to blow my mind here.
You cannot. My math isn't going to be that fast, but it's very difficult in your cellar to create, in reality, more than a mile or so of track. So a lot of people then start to create railroads of their own making, of their own design, and pattern it maybe after a real railroad. But the hobbyist is going to be trying to duplicate the activity of a real railroad, which is what we're doing here at the moment. This train that I have is supposed to go down to the Georgia Pacific Company over there.
Oh,
and
look at this.
Do a lot of switching. I'm trying to
wow.
figure out how to get there at the moment.
I heard somebody say, "Can we get there from here?" That is so neat. Jim, get over here and say hello to us. Jim Morris, how are you?
Hi, fine, Gordy.
Well, how did your interest in model railroading start?
Oh, about the age of 3, my dad bought me my first Lionel train set for Christmas, and I've been hooked ever since. That's a long time ago.
Have you been friends with these guys for a while?
For a long time, yeah. Particularly Bill. Dave Brown, he's rather a newcomer to our little get-together. About maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Where do you live, Jim?
Right now I live in Plattsburgh, or just outside on LeBaire Street. I was originally from Katyville.
Oh, you were, huh?
Yeah.
Do you have a big layout at home? Or?
Fairly decent size.
Did you have to take a whole room, or did you do it in your garage, or how'd that work? They're laughing. You want to take over more and more of the house, right?
Don't let my wife hear that. Yeah, I've got about half of a family room, which is, I guess I've got about 14 by 13 feet plus, and still trying to acquire some more real estate.
You have to put an addition on the house so you can put some more tunnels and stuff in. Do you do any of the building or the stuff yourself, Jim?
Not from scratch, but all the kits like Dave Brown has here. Yeah, we put kits together. Sometimes we kit bash, put 2 or 3 more buildings together to make something different from the original. I love building engines, particularly steam. I've done a lot of that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, when you get a kit for a steam engine, what does it look like? Is it partially built, or do you go from scratch, or how does that work?
Not quite from scratch. Usually the boiler is in one piece. However, it's die cast. There's a lot of flashing. It has to be taken off with files and so on and so forth. It has to be cleaned up. You have an awful lot of details you have to put on it, and of course it has to be painted. That's not the easiest part. It's not the part that I like the best. But
Well, model building is fun for anybody, but getting into model trains, that fulfills a lot of fantasies and a lot of fun that you've had in your mind since you were youngsters. You all have that childlike curiosity for.
This is true. Trains, there's something magical about them. Of course, real railroading way back when helped to develop this country. And without the railroads, we wouldn't probably be where we are today.
Regular viewers to this program called Our Little Corner on your local cable system are familiar with the topic of railroading because we've done some research through the experts who've written books on the subjects, talked to local historians, and tried to reveal over the course of a series of several programs on railroading how absolutely vital the advent of the different sections of railroad and the different companies were to this part of New York State. Just incredible how they opened up whole new vistas way back in the 1800s.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
This is really fun. What did you bring with you today yourself?
I have a, what they call a GP 7 diesel over here. B&O. I am a B&O fan. Okay, but I'm also generic. I have my own. I have my own engines too with TD and J, Trenton, Delaware, and Jersey. It also stands for Tim, Jeff, and Debbie.
Oh.
You know my son Tim. So
Pretty cool.
yeah, like Bill Rook was saying that we try in some small way to emulate the real thing. But we take an awful lot of license, I guess you would say. We can't recreate a mile or 2 miles in our basements or whatever, so we fudge. The main point is railroading is fun, and that's what we have. We have a lot of fun.
You do have a lot of fun. I mean, it's almost impossible for me, with my panoramic vision, to see everything in this room, all the little details like the tiny tractors and the earth-moving equipment up in the mountains and so on. It's just, I'm going to move back over and talk to David for just a second, so we'll continue in a moment.
That's intentional. We have, those are called view blocks.
Just a second. One time, now maybe about a year ago, Calvin, we went down to Stowe, Vermont, and had a wonderful weekend, didn't we? Visiting with Jim Shaughnessy, who has, I guess, a kind of a regular apartment there. And he's written how many books on railroading?
Well, at least two
that we know
that
of.
we did the story on. That was got to be, well, I'd say over 2 years ago.
Is
that
it
we
over?
took that journey?
Well, we learned a lot about railroading, and that was a lot of fun from Jim.
Yeah, he did a D&H book and a Rutland book, and he is a well-respected author and historian on railroads that are important to a lot of people in the Tri-County area, because that's where the D&H and the Rutland ran, was right through our two counties.
And since that time, we've talked to a lot of people about railroading, and there's some other people we'd like to talk to.
Yeah, I ran into Dr. Michael Kudish, who's an instructor up at Paul Smith's, and told him we'd be getting a hold of him one of these days. He put out a new book. He's put out a couple. One of them that's been out for several years, called Where Did the Tracks Go? It's maybe a half-inch book, but he's put out a book that's probably about 2 inches thick. It's more in the size of the books that Jim Shaughnessy did, and very informative on the railroading, and that looks like it right there, Michael Kudish, Railroads of the Adirondacks.
Yeah,
I can't afford that book, but David can.
You pulled that right out of the archives. And Shaughnessy's book right here, oh yeah. Well, we had so much fun with him, David. We went over to Stowe, Vermont, first of all, for Calvin and I and our respective wives who went with us that day. It was almost like a religious experience. Because up there, with the Trapp Family Lodge and the sound of music, and my wife and Calvin's wife Judy went back up into the woods and found a shrine up in there and took pictures of it. It was just a delicious day, and Calvin and I didn't know when we'd ever see Shaughnessy again, so we sat there for about 5 hours or 4 or 5 hours, just getting them on tape, whatever we could. And those are in our archives. They've been played over and over again, and I have people call me about the old railroads in and out of Lion Mountain and Dannemora, and who was looking for the photographs? Was that Kudish looking for the photographs of the old railroading? So you have become a real history buff too, then,
a little
huh?
bit. You can't do this and not get hooked on the history a little bit. It's hard to ignore it.
David, you are, as I said before, a multifaceted personality. You're interested in lots of things about life, the past, the present, and the future. And just looking around this room boggles my mind, from old hats to railroad memorabilia to stained glass. Look at all this stuff around here. You have so many great old things in your house.
Back up for light.
Huh?
We need to back up.
Back up and get a little better light. David's got an old jukebox. I guess you still have it,
Yep.
right? That plays 78s. That would be familiar to me from my childhood.
1935 Wurlitzer P2.
Gee, Mom, it was a Wurlitzer.
Yeah, only takes nickels and dimes.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? You never got it running, though, did you?
No, I never have. Someday I will.
Somebody out there will come and say, David, I know you just need that tube, and you got to hook these wires
Yeah.
up, and we'll get that baby going. Then you got to find 78s, or do you have some?
Oh, we got some.
Oh, I love it. Well, first of all, you brought out a panel here giving us an idea how big model trains are and how small they are. Tell me about this.
Well, the top one here is N gauge, and there's actually one smaller, which is Z gauge, which is about half that size.
Wow.
They actually make those in briefcases. You can take it with you when you travel.
Gotta be kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. And then this is HO, which is one of the more popular sizes. And then this is American Flyer, which is S gauge. And you have O gauge, which is your Lionel and Marks. And K-Line also makes them.
That's the most familiar from 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, that and the American Flyer, where the American Flyer was 2-rail and the Lionel was 3-rail. And then this is what used to be called number 1 gauge, which is now called Garden Railway usually. And someday you'll have to go over to Carl Coke's and do his in his backyard. He has a Garden Railway there.
It's another guy who's invited us over to his place so many times. Of course, you have to go in the summertime.
Yeah, it's a little
But
rough today.
How much track does he have?
I don't know. He just lives across the bridge, and I've never been there.
Well, someday when we decide to do this program, if Calvin won't let me forget, when the weather's good next year, you and I will go over there and we'll spend some time with, because that's another area musician,
Yep.
retired music educator, or still teaches and does many things, and who's got interested in railroading, and he's really proud of this outdoor
Yes.
experience of his.
He does the railroad, and his wife does the garden.
Isn't that
what he told me.
amazing? That's
Now, they also they're all handmade. They make live steam engines, which you actually can sit on.
come on.
No, I'm serious. You have to hand make everything on those. They're not. You can't just go out and buy one usually, unless you buy one somebody had.
And people who have more money than you and me, sometimes
Or
put
more
those in their
time.
backyards. Now, wait a minute. When I first came out here, you're jogging my memory, and sometimes that can be dangerous. But on Route 9 south,
The old
somebody had a
Kinney-
railroad.
The old Kinney estate, they had a train that you could actually ride it. Matter of fact, it's mentioned in the one book there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to it? Things were
they
sold at
it-
auction.
They sold
I
it at
think.
auction, I think, 2 summers ago when they sold just about everything that was out there. And then they tore the house down and rebuilt it.
I know I remember seeing a barn that the train stayed in at night, and
Yeah, that was one that you could ride on. I think that was a diesel. That wasn't steam.
it was a diesel.
Yeah, well, a lot of those will run off of like a lawnmower engine.
Well, you know, I'm sure you've traveled around the country. I know you go to many of these places where there's swap meets and all kinds of stuff with railroading, and I've been to a lot of railroad museums around the country. There's a good one on Cape Cod. There are several down south, and almost every part of the country has one. And I can remember some of the miniature railroads in places where I lived over the years. And so can you, I guess.
Yeah, not too many.
There was a small railroad, many of these western villages like Frontier Town and so
Yeah, I
on had
remember
them.
that. I remember that one. I remember
Frontier
riding on that
Town.
as a kid.
And I worked, as many of our viewers know by now, I worked doing a lot of strange things, playing cowboy and rodeo idiot back in the 1950s in a place called Adventure Town, which was located near Alexandria Bay on the Thousand Islands. And one of the most delicious parts of that experience for me was not just falling off the bulls and scrambling my brain and getting shot 400 times a day and have little kids kick you in the head with their sharp-toed shoes saying, "He's not really dead." But one of the most charming experiences was on the train. I worked on this steam locomotive train that they had. I don't know what gauge you would call it, but it was maybe 1/3 a normal engine size.
Yeah.
And the history is a little fuzzy, but as I recall, the engine was built by Henry Ford for his kids. And somehow, you know, it ended up with several different owners and was purchased for this particular place back in the 1950s when they built Adventure Town. And they built, you know, the railroad all through the woods and back down through. And I would ride on the train, and the robbers would come and hold up the train, and people would get shot. But it was a real miniature steam engine.
Yeah.
And the people they hired to run the train were all retired guys from the railroad.
Yeah. Well,
And to get the stories from these old gray-haired guys
there's a
about their
There's
experience.
a skill to running it. I mean,
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
you know, they don't stop on a dime, and you have to run them by feel, the old steam engines.
Yeah, it was fun for me to ride on it, but mostly it was fun for me to talk to those old guys and listen to the stories of railroading and the animals that would get on the track and unfortunately the horrible accidents and mishaps with cars and trucks on the tracks. And, you know, railroading is still a pretty big part of America, but 50 years ago and 60 years ago when I was a youngster, it was a primary means of transportation and transport.
Oh yeah, before the interstates in the 50s when Eisenhower started the interstate system, that was the only way you went across the country. You didn't have airlines, you didn't have good roads to travel on, so you took the train.
And now we're building railroad cars right here in Plattsburgh and Barrie, Vermont with Bombardier, and we're talking about high-speed trains that do well over 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
A little difference from the old steam days.
Oh yeah, there's you read everywhere where they're restoring tracks here and there and everywhere to expand service for freight and for passenger.
And for, you know, little excursion trains through the Adirondack region from Saranac Lake to Lake Placid and down through to Old Forge. It's good to see that happen, too, isn't it?
Yeah, Jim and Dave Hall actually go up and work on the one at Saranac Lake and Lake Placid.
Oh, yeah.
Get to play with the big trains.
Oh, that's wow! Talk about a thrill.
That's a dream.
Let me just walk over here and talk to Jim about that for a second. Ooh, now you're getting me excited.
Dream of a lifetime.
Now tell me a little bit about it, Jim.
Well, the Adirondack Railroad started out down around, how do you pronounce that? Tandera? Yeah, down into Utica, and they're opening up the line from Thundera all the way up to Lake Placid eventually. Right now, in our so-called local area, Lake Placid to Saranac Lake is open. It's about a 10-mile train run. The first train leaves about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the last one leaves Saranac or leaves Lake Placid about 4:15 in the afternoon. They make 3 runs. It's a beautiful ride. The passenger cars were donated by the Canadian National Railroad, and they are 50 vintage passenger cars in excellent, excellent condition. We have 2 F7 diesels. One belongs to one of the upcoming engineers. He'll get to drive his own train here pretty soon. The story goes that there was 3 fellas that latched on to used F7 diesels, and they bought them for $3,000 a piece. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't.
$3,000 a piece. They had them refurbished, and we're using one of them on the Adirondack Railroad. There was another engine that came from Alaska, I believe. And how they got that down to this neck of the woods, I have no idea. But both engines are in pretty good condition. They act up once in a while. And everything right now is down in Rome, New York. And refurbishing is continuing on both the engines and the passenger cars.
So what do you guys do when you go up there?
Well, right now, we're just hostess. Dave Hull and myself are just hostess. What that means is that we welcome the people on board the train. We walk up and down the cars, talk to the people. If they ask questions, we try to answer them the best that we can. Since this was our first go at it, we have signed up to become trainmen, which is one step down below conductor. A trainman, what he does is basically the same thing as a hostess, but he also collects the tickets, and he's responsible for setting the brakes on some of the cars when the train comes to a full stop. And you get to wear a train uniform too, which is kind of neat.
It's the whole thing. It's like these reenactors that we interview who like to get into the old battles and stuff. It's wonderful because you actually become a part of history. You are, and it's easy to become immersed in this whole thing. I can tell by that gleam in your eye that these may be your favorite things in the whole world, huh?
I guess so. Can't get enough of it.
What are you dreaming for Christmas? You think you might get an engine under the tree, Jim?
No. No, that doesn't happen.
It's up to you to get what you want.
It's up to me to get what I want, yeah. Yeah, which is probably just as well, too, because I know what I'm looking for. And of course, I could tell the wife, I suppose, but I don't know.
No, isn't it great that there are still quite a few steam engines in operation in the United States, thanks to the love of people like you guys, lobbying congressmen, legislators, areas, raising money by selling bottles and cans and whatever it takes, and to get these things running and to keep them running. That's wonderful.
Yes, it is. I was stationed out in, I'm retired Air Force, and I was stationed out in Colorado. I never got to see it, but they have what they call a big boy. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. It's supposedly the largest steam engine ever built.
We've seen the pictures.
And yeah, and they would come down from Cheyenne, Wyoming into Denver. And it would be a regular train buff excursion where they'd get to certain points, maybe a cut in the bluff somewhere. They'd let the people off and photographers off, and the train would back up about a mile, and then it would come forward, spewing all of that black smoke. I mean, the whistles blowing and everything happening, you know. And you just...
I think I would OD. I would OD if I were there, man.
Yeah, well, I think I would have too.
I think that's what ecstasy is all about.
There's something about steam engines... It has so many moving parts. It just tells you energy, power. Where a diesel, like this thing right here, it's basically a box on wheels. It doesn't have the character that a steam engine had. Of course, steam engines were very, very hard to keep up, too. There's an awful lot of work on them.
You know, I was talking about that little one we had at Adventure Town, and you would be amazed what they had to do every day to make sure that thing was ready to go, because it worked hard. It just never stopped throughout the course of a day, and then it worked all summer. But every morning they'd be out there doing what they needed to do to keep it greased and going.
That's it. Everything has to be greased, even in between, while they're running. When they stop at a station, you'll see the fireman or the engineer get out with his oil can, oiling the driving rods, making sure everything is well lubricated. Of course, the firebox has to be maintained. The fireman, he, before they had the automatic coal screws to put the coal into the engine, he had to shovel it by hand. I've got a steam engine at home that has sound in it, and you can hear the fireman shoveling coal.
Can you really?
Oh, yes. So it's just pretty neat.
And in the early days, it was wood.
In the early days, it was wood, and they burned an awful lot of wood.
Can you imagine?
Of course, in the early days, too, they had a lot of problem with fires. Because of the cinders coming up through the smokestack. They had smoke or cinder arresters in the stacks, but it was only helpful to some degree. Quite often, they would have a fire train, what they call the fire train, riding behind a regular train, had water on tanks. So they'd follow the steam engine and put out the fire that the steam engine was causing, going through your heavily wooded areas, of course.
There were, we've seen the pictures of all the earliest steam engines that were, what was the name of that first, gosh, now you're, the first steam engine? The
DeWitt and,
David's going.
Get your book out there.
He's going to get. But you know, Jim, when you said size and power, as little kids, a big steam engine, those big steam engine you talk about used to come past where I live down in Westchester County. And to me, as a little kid, and now as a big kid, an older kid, unbelievable, massive power. When you consider the freight train, and we'd always stand there and count the cars to see how many cars there would be, and it's truly amazing the power they had.
Oh, this is very, very true. Like I say, with everything moving on that steam engine, it just said power, 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 power. And I can remember riding with my dad in a car. If we come to a railroad crossing, and slow down, there's a train coming. You'd sit there and you'd wait, and you would count the number of cars going by that crossing, and just as a little kid, just marvel at the whole thing. It's unbelievable.
Steam, just unbelievable power. Let's give me back over here, David. What? Let me get to the other side of you, and you can tell me what this is. The Sturbridge Lion, Delaware and Hudson Company. That's the one we see the picture of. It says, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the first successful trip made in America by a steam locomotive at Honesdale, Pennsylvania, August 8th, 1829, by the Sturbridge Lion, that's the name I was trying to think of, driven by Horatio Allen. I wonder if his ancestors are still around. They must be. Where did this come from?
A friend of mine gave it to me. I don't know where he got it. I thought it was a belt buckle when I first saw it. And he knew I was interested in trains. He said, oh, yeah, he said, I wanted you to have that. So I latched onto it.
Friends are for, right?
Yes, I latched onto it, and I don't know. It must be something they gave out in 1929.
Yeah, 1829, 1929, the two dates on there, and that's, you're already talking 71 years ago, David.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a neat thing to
yeah,
have.
I kind of cherish it.
Oh, boy. We were talking with Jim about the power of these steam engines. I don't think some of our viewers, especially the younger viewers, may not be aware of how heavy these huge engines are and just how much power they generate.
Yeah, I can't quote any figures, but I know they're in the tons.
Oh, tons and tons and tons. Just massive. And I can remember as a little kid standing by the tracks and looking at those huge driver wheels.
Yep. Well, some of them are 7 feet across.
Yeah, think about that, 7 feet across. And because of their massive size, it took a while for them to get up to speed, especially if they were towing all those, how many cars, I don't know how many cars those big engines could tow, but it had to be way over 100, right?
I would think so. I know we used to watch the diesels in Virginia when I was a kid. We'd count 350 cars sometimes.
Really?
Behind 5 diesels. So I'm sure they pull close to 100 cars.
But that sound of the steam engine as it went, shoo, 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 and then the telltale sound. And I can remember, of course, they used that sound as sound effects on all the old radio shows when I was a kid. And I don't know if it was really recorded sound or if it was some guy making that noise like I was, but it's sure, every time I hear that sound, it conjures up that image of the steam engine. And we had a steam engine come through Plattsburgh 25 or so years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was. I know that Sid Spiegel was the news director at the radio station at the time, and I just sat there and held the microphone down next to it so I could hear the brakes and listen to the sound. And boy, talk about reliving my childhood.
Oh, yes. There was a steam engine came through here. It wasn't under steam. It was being towed from, I think it was coming from Steamtown in Pennsylvania going up to Canada. I happened to catch a picture of it. Not a very good picture, but I did catch it going by. They were taking it up to Canada to restore it for the Canadian National, I think, or Canadian Pacific.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it came through. It had an F7 and a steam engine.
Oh, that's great. I heard Rosie's coming.
Yep. Yep.
You told me Rosie may be here. Maybe Rosie did remember. Is she down there?
Yeah.
We'll stop our camera.
yeah.
We'll stop the camera and go get Rosie. All right, we moved now to the inner circle. What's he looking at over there?
That's the Port Kent train station back in the steam era. And on the left, you see the D&H tracks. And on the right is the Keysville Port Kent Railroad tracks. There used to be a train that ran from Port Kent to Keysville. And the train station in Keysville still exists. It's the North Country Club. It's the old train station.
Isn't that amazing? And ask me what happened to the Port Kent station during the ice storm.
Oh, I know what happened to it. I saw the big gully there.
There were some massive changes going on.
Oh, yes.
I had some of my grandchildren from Long Island up here visiting at the time. I said, I'm going to show you something that you'll never forget. And I took them down there to see what had happened down there.
Oh, it was
Boy, when they started digging around down there, it was amazing.
phenomenal. The water was just incredible. Okay,
What's the one on the
the
top?
top picture is an RS3. That's one of the first diesels that the D&H had, and that's Plattsburgh right there. You can see the station up to on the right-hand side of the picture, and on the left is the Fobert House, which used to be a rooming house. They had many chimneys on it. That building is still there. It's apartments now. It used to be It used to be J.B. Hulbert, I think it was, at one time.
Myers?
Or
Was it-
Myers?
wasn't it
Myers? Maybe
It was
Myers.
Myers for years, I know.
I know it was one of the hardware places.
And the station, of course, is still there.
Still there, yeah.
They've done many things with it, but it's still, passengers still get on the train down there.
Yes. Oh, yes. And down the bottom picture of those three is in front of the Plattsburgh station. That's the Plattsburgh Traction Company, one of their trolleys,
I don't know
which
what,
used to run through Plattsburgh.
I don't know what year that might have been, but I know we've talked often about how the trolley tracks went all the way out to Bluff Point and out to what is now Clinton Community College.
Yeah.
And we've had stories. Len Snow, a gentleman in his late 80s, told us how they used to get on the railroad on a Saturday and go to Plattsburgh, and their parents would give them a certain amount of money, and they'd ride the train and ride the trolley all day long, go to Plattsburgh, and come back home to
Yes.
Sable Forks at night.
Yep. Yeah. It was the way you got around back then.
All right, now I've got something in my hands that Bill gave me, and these are these computer-generated tickets.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about what. I have no idea what that language would be on there. What are they for? And
Okay,
explain
well,
that once again.
This says car. It says boxcar B&O 1917.
The number on the car.
Yeah, and it says location Georgia Pacific. So when Bill goes over to Georgia Pacific, he finds that car, and he pulls it out of the siding over there, and he lines it up in his train, and it says destination is yard. So when he comes back to the yard of his train, that's where he'll leave that car. Now my program is a little bit simple. We just go from the yard to industry and back. Jim and Bill, they have theirs a little more complicated. You may have to take a car from the yard or a train from the yard, go to an industry, then you may have to pick up a car and leave it at another industry instead of leaving it at a yard. So it gets a little complicated.
But
It's a bit of a challenge.
These kinds of things would be done for real trains too.
Oh yeah,
right?
that's the general idea.
That's
Is
the
you're
whole
running
point.
it just like a real railroad would be run.
Now we're looking down here. Follow me down here. Is this all stuff in the middle that you yourself built?
Yeah, that's all foam. That mountain is all foam.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's very complicated. How long did you spend on that thing?
Couple weeks. Trees
Couple weeks?
trees take forever.
They do?
It still needs more trees. I don't know if you ever watched this old house
Yeah.
where they do the foam, they spray it in, and then
Yeah.
well, that's what's in this room.
Oh, no kidding.
We had that done here, and when they shave off the foam, of course you get it bulges out beyond the studs.
Yeah.
I saved some of that, and that's what that mountain is built out of, is the foam that we shaved off.
Well, how do you mold it?
What I did is I took the pieces and I stacked them up. I put boxes and whatever to hold them up and got them where I wanted. And then I took the can foam and I went between them to hold them together. And then wherever else there was gaps or anything, I used plaster to
Oh, man.
put it together.
And it only took you a couple of weeks?
Yeah, well, just to get the basic mountain, then you had to work on you had track and you had scenery and painting and all that stuff to do.
Well, it's beautiful because we got water towers. We got over to the left there, you got cars stacked with wood. You got wood piles. You got old-fashioned trucks. You got just about everything going on here. And
Those aren't real rocks either. We have molds. You buy molds and you take plaster and you make your own rocks.
Look at this, Calvin. This just gives you an idea of what the process would be like.
We have rubber molds that we pour the plaster into, and then when it hardens, you peel the mold off.
It looks real just like
Yeah,
that.
and then,
when
you paint it. You can paint it any color you want and give it any texture you want, depending on how good you are at painting.
Oh my goodness! And the buildings have things written in the windows.
You buy those; they come on a sheet of acetate, and you cut them out, and you put them right in the building. Makes it look a little more occupied, you know.
And some guys build all this stuff, as you said, right from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
They prefer to start right in the beginning.
Yeah, they're much better at it than I am.
Well, they got time. Time is of the essence. And when you still have a full-time job,
Yeah.
and you're still building things out in your other shop, what kinds of stuff have you made in your wood shop
Oh,
lately?
I haven't done much lately. It's
You haven't?
kind of been just sitting idle.
Well, you've made many things. You were,
Oh, yeah.
what, were you working on a canoe last time I was here?
We've done a couple canoes, and
Have you?
yeah,
you
took to them on the Allegash River up Maine. And
Really? I'll let you put that building back over there. That's great. And you cover, I mean, your models seem to cover different time periods. I see some
Yeah.
of your old vehicles look like they're from the 40s and some
Yeah,
from
I-
the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I kind of got from the 40s right up to modern. I
Mix
don't.
them right up a little
Yeah, I just do what I like. I don't try to stay in any particular time frame. Some people actually model a particular day in the year. You know.
bit. Oh, they do?
Oh yeah, I've seen that
I
done.
see.
But,
So this is all your stuff over here on the sides, too.
everything on here except for the few engines that they brought.
Well, what, did you start with a master plan, or did you just start with an idea and build on it?
This one I actually did draw a plan for, and laid out my track, and I built it and laid the track out. Once you lay your track out, you start running trains. Find any problems with your track lane. If you have spots where the train keeps derailing or something, then you have to do some correcting on it sometimes. And like this particular switch here, I
Look
had
at the size of that little tiny
yeah.
switch.
Well, I had this ground throw on this side over here.
Yeah.
But every time I brought a long car around, it would hit it on the inside because they overhang. It's a sharp curve, so I had to move it to the other sides to where there's clearance to get it by. There's just little things like that you run into.
Okay, so that you have to do that one by hand. You can't do that one.
We have a few of them that are electric, but most of ours are ground throws, or some of them you just have a little bar there that you push back
Look at
and
this. He's
forth.
got a drain pipe right in the side.
Yeah,
A little pond.
yeah. That's just a little epoxy. It's a little dusty right now, but
That's amazing. Do you have to buy special tools to work on these cars, or do you just use regular hand tools?
mostly just small screwdrivers and small pliers and.
Well, we look over here in this box of things. We got everything from clamps to solder to little nippers.
Yeah, these are rail nippers for cutting the rail. These are for adjusting your couplers.
Oh boy.
But
You
there's,
got a lot of spare parts.
and you don't
other cars.
have to have a lot of this stuff. It just makes it a little easier.
I imagine you tend to collect things as time goes
Oh, yeah.
on. I see you down here. You got plastic boxes
Oh,
full
yeah,
of
it's
parts and
pieces and
paints
leftovers
and wow.
Don't film that. That's a mess.
Oh no, messes are good because that's what it is. You have to have. All right, well, let's get over here. We'll take a look at what we see here. Jim's beckoning. All right, look at this. Of course, we got a little sound connected with it. Let's listen to it. There we got a light flashing on the back of the caboose. We got the sound is incredible. I love it. If we look a little excited as we're doing this is because it's fun for us just as viewers to get involved with it. Let Jim come over here. Maybe sometimes you have to touch it to get it going.
Yeah, you hit little dead spots in the track, or there's a little bit of dirt on the track.
Now, when we came here, we saw you rubbing on the track with something. What were you doing?
It's like a little
block.
Yeah, it's for cleaning the tracks. It's a little abrasive block, and you just rub it across the track, and it cleans.
And that's for the electric contact, so it's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and then you have to clean your wheels once in a while.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, yeah. We used to use Goo Gone, which you buy for taking labels off.
Oh my. Well, I'm looking above. Look around the room up above on all these shelves.
Yeah,
Explain to us a little bit about what we see up there.
I'm not sure what he's looking at. There's a Bachmann trolley up there, which is a G gauge, and there's some American Flyer up there. American Flyer cars and engines.
You just got
A lot of
stuff
pictures
everywhere. Photographs, cars.
Yeah.
What do we got up here that he's looking
That's
at?
an American Flyer train.
Okay.
It's
Did you ever run that one?
no, I've never run that one.
Really?
No, I bought it at a flea market and
Put
just kind
it
of held
up.
on to it. Yeah.
Well, what are some of these?
So these are old stocks. Terry Rillihan over here in Peru. I don't know if you know Terry or not. He sells stocks, and a lot of these are different railroad stocks that you can buy. He has the I don't know if you remember the little picture of the little boy with the Lionel.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, well, he has that picture, but he also has the printing plate that they made that off of,
Oh,
which has
gotta be
it's got to be
kidding.
priceless.
Oh,
It's incredible.
imagine.
I don't know if he had it down at the show or not, but he takes it to quite a few shows just to show people. He doesn't actually have it for sale.
I'd want to have an armored car when I
Yeah.
carried that.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Now, is this train that's running here? Is that running on a plan? Is somebody watching it, or how?
Yeah, Jim's running that one right
Jim's
there.
running that. He's,
Yeah.
Supposed to be watching it, I don't know.
Oh wow! When you
You got to throw your reverse loop switch. I'm not sure which.
No, help me.
Okay, hang on a
never
second.
mind. Let's let David get in here. And
Upper or lower there?
Upper.
Okay, yeah. You want to flip that red one the opposite way. I'm not sure you were into the block yet, though.
oh,
Stop by itself, or did you stop it?
No, stop by itself.
Give you a little help here. You seem to want to go. Just no, that's the block switch. You want the red one, not the. Put that one down.
This one down?
Yeah. The red one's the only one, and the red one has to go up or down. Don't seem to want to go.
Yeah, I tried to pull up your house.
I wonder if they have problems like that on real
Oh,
railroads.
I'm sure they do.
Whoops! It's absolutely fascinating. When I look at all the minute details, it reminds me of some of the models that our friend Ron Venn has made over the years. And he also uses some prepared models, but he also makes a lot of things from scratch. And a week never goes by when somebody doesn't talk about Ron Venn's models or his
I'll
photographs.
throw the red one down. Throw
Wow.
The red one all the way down. There you go.
And the engine has a headlight. Wow, it says "I love New York."
Yeah, yeah. That's the model of a real boxcar they used to have.
And I don't know if that would be Oh yeah, we got bridges. We got.
You're on the ground, Jim.
Gotta have a team effort here.
Yeah, well, you have to keep an eye on them. They do jump off the track once in a while. And
Yeah, not very rarely do we have any speed races like today's kids are used to cars and trains hurtling around tracks, but we just kind of,
well, a friend of my wife's came up here yesterday, and she wanted to see one run, so I ran it, and she said, well, it doesn't go any faster. And I said, well, scale speed is probably doing, 70, 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, how fast
She
do
said,
you
well,
want to go?
I'm used to going fast. Well, most people remember the old Lionel, which would, they ran at scale speed probably be 200 miles an hour,
Yeah.
But, when you're operating them, you tend to want to run them more realistically.
People think of high-speed trains as being a relatively modern thing in railroading, but some of those old steam trains could really hurtle down the
I
track.
was watching on the History Channel. They have a railroad show. I can't think of
Oh,
the
they
name.
do? I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've gone blank.
That's all right. I go blank about once every 3 minutes. But anyway. Uh-oh.
Trains Unlimited.
Oh, Trains Unlimited. Okay. And
And they were talking about in the 1800s, well, the trains were hitting 100 miles an hour.
in the 1800s?
Yeah, with the old steam engines.
Well, we know about early steam cars and the Stanley steamer.
Yeah.
They could go so fast they'd fly apart.
Yeah.
I can remember my father telling me that a couple of drunks picked him up when he was hitchhiking an old Stanley steamer, and I'm sure he had to change his clothes when he got home because he was very frightened by the run. It was just incredible how fast they
Yeah.
could go.
Yeah.
Steam power is awesome.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
Yes.
they don't realize, but the old farmers will talk to you about steam tractors and various pieces of equipment used on farms that were run by steam, steam combines and so on.
Yeah, well, that was
Massive machines.
before gasoline engines. That was the source of power,
Yeah.
That's how they harnessed power.
All right. What else have you got around this room that we might want to look at today? You collect anything to do with trains.
We collect a little bit of everything.
I see you've got pins over there on the wall. What's that all about?
Oh, it's just pins I picked up over the years. Nothing in particular.
And books.
Yeah,
You
books.
never get enough books and tapes and movies and
Yep.
TV shows and
Yeah, we got a run over here. We thought maybe we'd have you run one of these trains.
okay, that's a great idea. Let's just move around.
See if I can find my controller here.
That's all right. Take your time. All right, we want to get down and say hello to Rosie. How are you?
Good, Gordon, good.
What's your last name again?
Williams.
Williams, I knew it was. I've met him several times before. We weren't sure if you're going to be here today.
Well,
All of
I
a sudden,
wasn't
Jim
sure.
screamed, he's down there. He's in the parking lot. He's coming up the stair.
Today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I wasn't sure I was going to be off today. And of course, I'm always dragging up the rear, But I wasn't going to allow these guys to get their mugs on the TV without me.
Before you got here, we're asking all these guys how they got started in the modeling business. How did you first develop an interest, Ro?
Well, I've always had an interest, but I didn't have a layout until I ran into these guys over at the mall one time. And I stumbled in there, my wife and I were shopping, and of course I let her go, and I stopped, and I chatted with them, and the more I chatted, the more interesting I became. And here I am.
Well, I bet you it was a longer road between there and here. It's like Jim said earlier, I don't know if you can get there from here, but
We got him hook, line, and
you
sinker.
got him hook, line, and sinker.
And it didn't take much.
As we've said before, everybody's had an interest in railroads from the time they were little kids, but to get involved in the actual modeling. So what have you got for yourself at your place?
I have my whole basement is a railroad. My basement, when the kids were home, was our family room. And of course, as the kids left home, college and left home, I gained a few more feet. And when
Everybody's looking for more real estate.
And when my last daughter left, I ended up with the whole basement. So I have trained all over the place, and I have 4 grandsons, and it doesn't get any better than that. And oh yes, and my youngest grandson will be with us for Christmas. They're coming up from San Antonio, and I'm excited about that. He's 4 years old, and he can't wait to get here to go down in the basement.
And you imagine a 4-year-old seeing?
4-year-old.
He's never seen it before.
Yes, he has. They were here a year ago, and I couldn't keep him out of the basement. And since then, each time I talk with him, he tells me, "Poppy, I'm coming, and I want to go down in the
Oh,
basement."
I bet you those little fingers
So we're
just want to
looking
grab
forward to that.
everything, right?
Yes, we're looking forward to that.
The little kids are beautiful, and to pass this passion on to the next generation, and the next generation as part of the charm of the whole thing. Let's find out a little bit about you. Where'd you come from, and how did you end up in this part of the North Country?
I'm originally from the state of Alabama. I'm from Birmingham, and of course I enlisted in the service, in the Air Force, and I ended up in the South Pacific back in 1954. And from there, I came to Plattsburgh. And I was at Plattsburgh altogether for 18 years, and I left 3 different times and came back. And I guess you might say, I couldn't stay away. It grew on me, and so I retired here. And I figured Plattsburgh, good a place as any to live. So this is it. I stayed here. This is home now.
You cringe every time that temperature gets below zero like it did this morning? I mean,
Well-
that's a little bit different from Alabama,
A little
Rosie.
bit different, you see. But it's something that grew on me. And I mean, to tell you the truth, I prefer the cold weather now because where I come from, it's invariably hot. And of course, when we go down, we try to go down in the fall. It's a little bit more bearable then. And I prefer the cold weather. And as
You
I,
got your roots down here.
this is it now. This is it now. My wife is from here, and my kids all went to school here. And as I say, I retired from Plattsburgh Air Base. And as I said before, by that time, Plattsburgh was home.
Can you imagine what it might have been like standing out on either side of the road where Plattsburgh Air Force Base was located, and imagine trolley tracks running right there and heading right past there out to Bluff Point? way back when?
Well, they tell me that, and of course I've read about it. Of course, the tracks were gone when I came, but I've seen pictures and I've read stories, and I can imagine it must have been something.
Massive changes between the time you came here and now. We all had a very intense grieving period when the base closed. Now we're putting in a big bike path down there behind that next to the railroad tracks. Unbelievable how many things have changed. huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, as you look around the area here, an awful lot of people that were associated at one time or another with that air base ended up, as I did, staying here. So the place is a magnet, I guess.
You know it is, and it's something we talked about at the time, and we talk about a lot now. How many people left 2 or 3 times and
And came back.
came back and built a house and raised a family, and once you get your roots down here, Alabama seems a long ways away.
As I said before, I'm from a big city, but I don't really favor a big city. There's nothing I want that I can't find right here. And if I want a taste of a big city, well, we got Montreal right up the road there, you say.
We fall in love with a lot of things throughout the course of our lifetimes, but in just looking at the faces of all these guys who are model railroading enthusiasts, this must be one of the great loves of your life.
It is, and I look forward to the shows that we do around the area. It's a chance that we get to talk about the hobby, drum the hobby up, and it's so interesting when we're having a show to have someone come up and show interest and ask questions about the hobby, and I really get a charge out of that, especially the little guys, the children.
You just want to do it to other people what these guys did to you.
Yes.
But that's how it is. You
Yes,
sit down and talk to some people. Some people come in and they've never had any interest in model railroading, and in about 10 minutes you can just see their eyes are glazing over.
And I didn't realize it before I got involved in the hobby that model railroading is the second most populous hobby there is, and number one being stamp collecting, believe it or not.
Come on.
And I didn't realize that until I became involved. So there's an awful lot of people that are in the hobby, and if you ever had the opportunity to go down to Springfield in February when they have the big show down there, about 3 acres of it, you'd be amazed. And you would learn right away that almost as many females are in the hobby as males.
No, I would never have dreamed that.
Oh my goodness, we go down there and it's a standing room only and almost turning room only. Now we go down there and I would imagine every foot or two that you move, you got to apologize to somebody for bumping into them. That's how many people show up at
Make
this.
a lot of new friends that way, right? That's good. And do you spend a whole weekend there or one day?
No,
or?
no. See, when we go, normally we'll leave here on Friday night and we'll go down to Albany, spend the night, and get up. The next morning, drive on into Springfield, which is an hour. Away from Albany, and we spend one day. It's a lot to see. It's a lot of running, a lot of walking, but you get tired. Although I love the hobby, I love shopping for things for the hobby, but you get tired. And so we get in the car and we drive back Saturday night after we visit and pay our respects to some of the local hobby shops along the way.
And they're always glad to see you coming, baby. If you, that's a good question to ask model enthusiasts or people who love any kind of hobby, but if you had unlimited resources, what would you build at your place? Probably a whole new building, right?
Well, yeah, probably. Of course, as I heard Dave say to you a little while ago, anything you see on these layouts, it all comes in kits. There's not much you can buy and just sit on the layout. You have to build everything, and that's more fun than you can even imagine. It's a lot of time, but if you love the hobby, then you don't mind.
Yeah, the accomplishment is really a lot of fun. Boy, you are a man of a very few words over here. Billy, what's going on?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Most people say I have lots of things to say.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your interest in model railroading.
Well, I pretty well covered it.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Put a microphone. Yeah, well, I think you said everything, Gordy.
We of course just moved from Dannemora into the city a couple of years ago, and my wife swears that we only looked for one thing when we bought the house. It had to have a dry, nice basement.
Isn't that amazing?
and we found one. It's amazing the number of houses in Plattsburgh that don't have dry basements.
That's true. And in Morrisonville.
But we found one, and so I've rebuilt my layout, and I have it set up there. And my layout's the Fawn Grove and Whitehall. And I should have brought one of the cars because John Fadden, that used to teach art at Saranac, gave me a drawing of a deer. So I have a decal of a deer, and my railroad is the Dear Little Line. The Fawn Grove and Whitehall.
Wow, that dear little line. Isn't that sweet?
And the Fawn Grove comes from my daughter's name. Her name is Fawn. So it's the Fawn Grove and Whitehall. My family came from Whitehall, so we had to include it. Of course, that was a big railroad town in northern New York anyway, all through the 30s and 40s. So that's the origins of my railroad.
That's great. We were just talking with Rosie about what the dream would be if you had unlimited resources. What would you like to do at your place? I imagine the dream will vary a little bit from individual to individual.
Well, I've often dreamed of buying a large hall and building a very large layout that everybody in the area could be a part of that wanted to be. And that would be the dream probably still, but
I imagine that could happen.
crates for sale.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good size. The crate would be a good size, yes. We could do quite well with that. And so
You guys had a pretty good layout in there when you had your last show.
yeah, that's our modular group. I have some units of that. I have 3 or 4 corner units of that. I like to do things with electronics. I like to have lights flashing and bells ringing and all those sorts of things.
We all like to have lights flashing,
And
bells ringing.
and I don't really like to do scenery. My idea of scenery is get something down as fast as possible to cover up the area so that it looks like it's supposed to be something. So, I like to do the lights, and I've helped the guys install some sound systems in their various engines. And
Well, the more people you gather, the more likely you are to put together something spectacular. And hopefully a program like this on your local cable system will generate some interest. How would, if somebody watching this, and I can't imagine how they wouldn't be excited about what you guys are doing, I can just see a lot of these people drooling saying, where do I start? I imagine you'd like to bring them under your wing, and how would they do that? How would they get in touch with one of you guys?
They can contact any one of us. We're all in the phone book. We're all Plattsburgh, Peru, Keysville, local numbers. And any of us would be happy to talk to anybody at any time about model railroading. You can guess that, can't you?
Have soapbox will travel.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we would be willing to help anybody anytime.
Well, let's hope the group will grow. Now, there aren't just you four guys. In your group, you've got a few more, don't you?
Dave Hull isn't with us this morning. He's over in Lake Placid, I believe. And Frank Dietz is with us frequently. And the numbers are increasing and changing all the time. One of the Pavone, Sam Pavone, was saw at the railroad show, and he's still active in the hobby. And I hadn't seen him in a long time since the store had closed.
Yeah, so, Gene used to have models down there, didn't he?
He was our hobby shop in when I first came here. That was where you went to get everything you needed for model railroading or for model airplanes. So that was a good place.
Are there other stores in town now that sell that stuff?
The Art and Hobby Shop is getting into model railroad supplies, and he's located on Margaret Street, down near Bridge Street.
I was thinking about, there have been various hobby shops around since I first came here in 1961. Yeah, just thinking about Plattsburgh Hobbies, a few others.
Yes, and Mike is a member of our group too.
Oh, he is?
Oh, yes.
Some hang around for a while and some don't, and I imagine if you were going to get into railroading exclusively, you'd have to make sure you had a market, a big enough market to sustain it. Come on over, Dave.
It's not really that big around here as far as the market. Mail order and internet have taken over a lot of it. So it's...
Well, that's another thing that I have,
local hobby shops.
that I'm just thinking about here today as I scan on the internet. You can buy anything you want on that internet, and I imagine model railroading, there must be at least 50 million sites out there.
Oh yeah, and there's I don't have anything on the internet. I don't go on the internet, but just
you don't,
just the catalogs and such that you get mailed to you. You can buy most anything you want. It's like I say, my computer and I only have one thing in common. Neither one of us has much memory.
I like that. Boy, I tell you, I see myself in that mirror. I guarantee you that, baby. Every time David has a lapse of memory, can't remember a TV show, I turn to Calvin, I say, what is that guy's first name again? He remembers names way, way better than I do.
Like I say, I don't remember getting absent-minded.
No, I like... Now, do all of you collect other kinds of railroad memorabilia? David's got some things. He's got lots of books. Do you have a lot of books, and do you have old lanterns? And
Some, but not a great deal. I keep my collecting focused primarily on materials that I want to hobby from, and that would be the Delaware and Hudson equipment. So I've got Shaughnessy's book that I heard you talking about a little while ago. But I don't focus too much on the collecting side of it. I channel my energies into the HO level of it.
David collects anything that's not nailed down, right?
The price is right.
But you've been interested in collectibles and antiques and hobbies for such a long
You
time.
can tell that just walking through our house.
Yeah,
We
there's
don't.
so many wonderful things, charming coming up the stairs. I was watching my elbows,
Well, we collect whatever we're interested in, not necessarily antiques. Just anything that strikes our fancy.
But people, if you create a comfortable environment, what else is there in this world?
It's
If you feel good walking into your house and sitting there and looking at the things you have,
well, you hate to have a chair that you don't want anybody to sit in, or a piece of furniture you don't want anybody to touch. I mean, you want stuff that you can use.
and you have found unique, novel, beautiful, interesting ways of displaying things. See, I don't have that kind of a creative mind. I've got so many things I've collected, and guess where they are? In stupid boxes in a stupid garage where nobody can ever see them. and I have a big house, you know. I'm getting into the last third of my life, and people say, well, when are you going to sell that big, you know, we have a 6-bedroom house. When are you going to sell that big house and get into a nice small thing, get rid of all that stuff? Guess what? I love that stuff. And it's yours. And it's mine. And I wish I had a house with 14 bedrooms.
We just added on to this house, and all the kids are gone.
6-bedroom house, we could put a good-sized layout in.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. If we knock out a couple of those bedrooms upstairs, and you never know. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, a few little, what do they call those? Helix, yeah. Go from one floor to the next floor, you know?
Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if Bill Rook's dream could become a reality, and you could have a large building that you could turn into a model railroading museum or something in this area? You never know what might transpire. Maybe somebody, a philanthropist is out there with a couple of $1 million seed money to get us started. I don't know. But it's okay to dream, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dreams are what keep you going.
In the meantime, we just keep working on what we got here.
We got a train here for you to run.
Oh, you got? All right. All right. I'll crash it. You got to remember, we'll move to another location and see if we can really mess up a train. All right. I'm going to run a train here and then we're going to shut the microphone off just so people can watch me screw up and you help me. So what is it going to do?
You're going to run around the layout here to this little village on the other side, and you're going to switch a couple cars. You're going to drop one off and bring one back.
Okay.
This is real simple.
We got to see. We got a light on at the caboose. I hope they're making lunch for us back there. Those cabooses, we've been in some real ones. You know, we went down to Port Henry when they opened up a nice little mining and railroad museum down there. And they got a couple of cars there, and we got a little history. Have you ever been down there?
No, I haven't.
Well, you might enjoy that.
I just haven't got there yet.
Take a little trip down there, but they did have a refurbished caboose. And I hadn't been in one in many years, and a lot of things happened in those cabooses, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This one had I think a pot-bellied wood stove in there.
And cook, and they lived in it, you know.
And sleeping bunks and all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah. Oh boy, the history of railroading is just terrific, and we've learned so much today. And now this portion of the show will be the portion that you'll likely forget the quickest, based on what you're about to see. So enjoy. All right, here we go.
The turnouts are set, so push your forward and reverse button.
Okay.
There, now go.
I'm turning. You'll probably start off at about... Oh, I see.
There you go. You set it on.
Oh, okay. I'm having fun. Actually, what? I'm playing Game Boy in the caboose, having a ham cheese sandwich.
You can go a little faster if you want.
Oh, like that?
Yep.
And the lights go on and off because of the track, right?
Connection, yeah. The red one on the back is supposed to flash. The one's inside aren't.
You can see it coming. Ah, here it comes. Turning.
You might have to touch it to get it started. Don't be pushing your forward or reverse button. Somebody's on a...
Yeah, Jim, you got it.
Go like lost.
Yeah.
Lost. Nothing.
30?
Yeah, 30.
We had a runaway there.
It's still not working right.
Start again?
No,
I'll get it in a second.
all you turn is that knob. No,
Just
this
turn the knob?
That's just forward and reverse. You don't touch
Okay.
that unless you're changing directions.
Okay.
There's a light knob.
Okay.
You can come in here and stop.
Tell me when.
Okay, place it in. Stop.
30. I was on that radio,
Just try it.
Yes.
and it's over. I mean, it's over there somewhere.
Okay, you run down here and stop.
There we go.
Once you get through this switch here.
Way up there where they are.
Through the switch?
Yeah, so just get through
Get
there,
it back
stop.
down here if you
And
can.
then you come back the other direction. Now you get that.
It's way over there. It's down there. Isn't
I
it?
got it. It's coming.
Okay.
Here's that.
You get yours under control? You still can't get yours under control? What channel are you?
That's fine. Oh, no.
There we go. All right, I'm going to dispatch it. It's on 0. It is dispatched. Now you should be able to.
Go past that switch there. Okay, stop. And then hook onto those two cars there. The lights go up. Get your forward reverse. Okay, bring it back out.
Where are you?
Okay, stop.
Rosie, don't go out there.
So you want your down hook on
Oh, I was
to,
up there. Okay.
He's taking off.
If you want, it's in a minute.
forward reverse.
Give me a little nudge while you're right
Come
there.
down, hook onto this.
You're going that way, okay.
Kids, I always have trouble right through here. And then pull forward, you want to push that car all the way into that building.
Stop. Jim, stop.
Whenever that light goes out, that means I've got power. You see that magnet right there, just past the road across it? You stop right over that.
With the engine off of it? or-
So we lost the car there.
Whoops.
You want to stop right between the caboose and that.
Okay.
That car there, if you can. So jump off the track again. He's just going to be aggravating us here.
They'll bring me into the yard.
Yeah, just back into the building over there.
I can't?
Where's he going?
Get inside this.
Some more?
Yeah, come on back. We don't have another coupler back here, so we have to fake it. That's my fault.
Okay, we clear it back up.
Just fake here. Caboose here. Come on, come on. Or is it, did it die on you?
Yeah,
Forward again. Clear. These are what you do. Just touching it, it won't go. There you go. Go back out. That's that switch out there. And I'll pick up your caboose in the back of the yard.
Yeah, I'll just sit there.
There you go. Oops. Reverse direction. Reverse direction. Button on the bottom.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, didn't reverse. You see that? There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Didn't take. Might have been on a dead spot when you did it.
Yeah, the trump's couple. Yeah. Didn't lose its springs, right-hand car, rail. Hey, fantastic.
I think we just picked up another member.
Hey, I got it.
We just picked
Fat
up another
fingers.
member. And it is catching for me.
There it is.
Just park it down by the station somewhere.
Anywhere?
Anywhere there. There.
Cool. Just coming up on the day of the baby, enough.
Well, it may not be brain surgery, but we had fun doing it. And doesn't it always happen where something happens, there's a glitch in the system when you're trying to show people
Oh, yeah.
how much fun model railroading
You know,
is?
Bill said that the other night. He says, you know it's going to act up the minute Gordy comes in here.
I'm sure I didn't necessarily have the magic touch, but it was a lot of fun, and it does rejuvenate my spirit in my own childhood. And I want to thank every one of you guys for allowing us to come in with you today and watch you play.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if we can't remember how to play, then we haven't lived our lives,
That's
have we?
right.
Huh?
That's right.
Thank you so much for your individual efforts. And once again, if any of our viewers are interested in model railroading, have been, and maybe that was just a latent desire that they had, or they want to start right now today, call one of these guys. Do you mind giving your telephone number, David?
No,
here?
I don't mind. It's,
What is it?
643-8025.
Get started and come to a meeting. Maybe Dave will have a cup of coffee for you.
Maybe.
And maybe you can add a great deal to this hobby that's seems to be blossoming here in the North Country. And next time we come back to do an interview, let's hope we got twice as many guys and about a 35-foot addition on that other side.
I don't think in this house there won't be. We're running out of room here.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Have a great day. This is before Christmas, so I'll wish everybody a happy holiday season. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.